What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, that Pens fan 412, and I'm coming back at you with another. I said another. I said another Penguins themed video here on the off season. I'm back. I'm better than ever, as you can tell by this setup here. I've got a whole new thing going on. I got some new hardware. I got a new laptop. Everything's recording better. The video quality is better. The camera that I was using is now essentially just a ring light because it is garbaggio compared to the one built into this laptop. The audio is bumping, everything's going good in the hood. But let's not dwell on that. Let's dwell on these penguins. So, about a month or so ago, I posted on the Facebook page here for the community for the Pens fan army, and I asked a simple question. What do you think? What do you think, as a Penguins fan, what do you think the Penguins can do to turn the ship around, or whatever general idea? What avenue should the Penguins take moving forward after what has been an abysmal season? So, without further ado, let's get started. But before we begin, let's go ahead and give a shout out to all the wonderful people subscribed to this channel. You are absolutely the juggernauts of the YouTube community. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following this channel through thick and thin, through ups and downs. We're on the ups now, so let's go ahead and make it happen. And if you're new here, if you happen to have clicked on this because you watch content on YouTube and it was recommended to you because you watch stuff about the Penguins or you just like hockey in general, that's awesome. Do me a favor, if you like the video at the end, go ahead and drop a little love on the subscribe button. It's right down here, right down below here, right here in the bottom of the screen right here. It's free, and you get the wonderful opportunity to hear a Penguins fan talk about their team, panic about their team. I know there are people here that watch this content just to see somebody get upset over their team or get upset over the YouTuber's team. I do the same thing to Steve Dangle and Steve Dangle's area and his podcasts and everything about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I could care less about Toronto, but watching him be passionate about his team is what gives me the energy, the desire, and the drive to do the exact same thing for my team. So, with all that being said, let's get into it. But before we talk about what the Penguins, in my opinion, and some of the opinions of the subscribers here to the channel think, we got to go back. We got to go back to right before the season. In the words of WWE superstar Bray Wyatt, the Pittsburgh Penguins had the entire world in their hands. They had the entire world in their hands. And you know what they ended up doing? They ended up dropping it. They ended up just not amounting to anything, really. It was actually kind of ridiculous how hard the Penguins threw it all away at the end of the season. So let's see here. Let's talk about it with the perspective of hindsight. I'm recording this on May the 11th, 2023. A lot has happened since these events have unfolded, and it actually makes things seem a little bit funnier in retrospect, right? But hindsight is 2020, and let's be honest, hindsight did not do too good. So there was 3 games left in the season, right? All we had to do was win these games. All we had to do was, at the very least, get a point in overtime, and we would have had the last place spot in the playoffs. We would have had the Florida Panthers position, which, as I know from current events in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Panthers are taking this opportunity and turning it into liquid gold because they have not only defeated the record-setting win record Boston Bruins, the President Trophy, the extremely high-touted winners of the Stanley Cup before these playoffs started, they beat them. They sent them home. They made Brad Marchand cry. We were all pretty happy about that, right? Sorry, Boston fans, but we were all pretty happy about that, right? Boston gets to go home. Everybody gets this na 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 na. Yeah, like it was great. Great for Florida. I'm happy for Florida. Another few things that happened, history changing moments. Toronto made it to a second round playoff berth. They made it to the second round. Now, are they going to last long in the second round? We don't know. I mean, they're down 3-0, or well, actually, it's 3-1 now as of yesterday. They actually won a game to stay in, just barely, but to stay in. They would have to make history again to make it to a Eastern Conference championship game. But that doesn't matter for the Penguins, right? Because the Penguins could have changed all of this simply by winning these games. The last 3 games of the season were against such opponents as the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Minnesota Wild. Now, against Minnesota, we won. We beat Minnesota. Minnesota went to the playoffs. They had a decent first round. They got knocked out. We beat Minnesota. The team that made it to the playoffs, we beat Minnesota. The other 2 teams, which were in the top 3 worst teams of the year this season, a team that is actually now probably going to draft Connor Bedard in Chicago, which, wow, okay, congratulations, Chicago. You guys got yourself a stud in the making. Do not mess that up. Mm. Like, we had all the opportunities. We had everything going for us. We only had to beat these teams. We would have been in the playoffs. But unfortunately, that's not how things worked. That's not how things worked out. And there was a lot of issues that led to this not working. And the biggest daunting issue was defense. Our defense is trash. It's garbage. The only defenders that I thought did anything that I actually liked watching play, that I actually liked seeing play because they made things happen and they played defensively, were Chris Letang and Jeff Petrie. And occasionally P.O. Joe. Occasionally P.O. Joe. Here's the problem with that. Chris Letang, who I cannot say a bad thing about whatsoever, especially after the year that he's had, and if he doesn't win the Bill Masterton Award this year, he's a finalist, by the way, but if he does not win that award, then this league sucks. This man had the second stroke of his career, and his father died all in the same season, and he was still out there, arguably as our best defensive presence. He had a life-threatening medical condition and a heartbreaking mental strike with his father passing, and he was still out there trying to just claw his way to a Stanley Cup playoff. Because for him, Crosby and Malkin, they're looking over the hill now. They're over the hill. They're still trying to be the elitist team that we know that they can be, and they're still putting in that work, but it's everybody around them that is seemingly just falling apart day by day, game by game. In those last 3 games, it was more noticeable than ever, right? So you get past that, right? The last home game of the season, the fans are chanting, "Fire Hextall, fire Burke." This team, like they're making their opinion known. We don't want this general manager. We don't want these guys. These guys didn't do anything, and they lied in the things that they did do. For example, Hextall was quoted in saying before the trade deadline that he did not want to trade first, second, and third round picks because he did know that a rebuild was in the future. It's in the cards. It's there. It's right there. We're not going to trade these picks. And then he went and traded a third for this year, which would have been nice to have because it would have been the 14th overall pick in the third round in a draft that is actually very dense in talent this season for a player that didn't amount to anything at all, right? So what happens? What happens, right? Hextall gets fired. Hallelujah. Hextall gets fired. Burke gets fired. Burke gets the can again. I don't to this day understand why the Penguins hired that guy because it has been proven throughout history that every team he's ever worked for in a capacity that he's had some say in things, he blew that team up in a very bad way. The Islanders, hmm, Vancouver, hmm, and now Pittsburgh. If Brian Burke gets a job in a capacity where he actually has some pull and some leverage, again, for an NHL franchise, it will surprise me yet again. The fact that we hired him surprised me, let alone anyone else. All right. Especially after what happened to Pittsburgh. So they get fired. Hextall's out after 2 years. He was on the chair for 2 years. Jimmy Ruff's over in Vancouver having a great time right now, mind you. But he's out after 2 years. To this point, we still haven't hired a new general manager or any staff that was fired. The GM, the assistant GM, and then the talent operations role. We still have to hire 3 people before really, I think anything. It has to happen before the draft, right? Because we have to have somebody like Mario. Mario's not just going to walk up and be like, for the 14th selection in the first round, the Pittsburgh Penguins select from Saskatchewan, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I don't know what's going to happen. Right. The first round's going to be nice. The fact that we have the 14th overall pick as of the draft lottery a few days ago is awesome. Because, like I said, this draft is stacked. There's a lot of great talent in this draft. There's a lot of great opportunity here. Problem is, a lot of the first round guys are not necessarily defensemen. It's more of a wingers and forwards kind of ordeal. Which, if that's the case, I'm looking for right wing personally out of this draft, just to dabble in a little bit to there. But with that point, where do we go? What do we do? What happens? What does Pittsburgh have to do? Do we turn the ship around and try to push for another cup? Possibly, and we will talk about free agent options that might be able to make that a relative ideal scenario. Do we just accept our losses and prepare to rebuild and prepare for a future that might not have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang? That's also an option. That's also an avenue that we will discuss. But the first thing I want to talk about, and this is something that is very daunting, and I said that in the beginning, but it's very daunting. Our defense sucks. Our defense sucks. Everything about our defense sucks. And the first person that I am going to target, and don't first full disclosure, all right. I like this guy. I've always liked this guy, and I've always supported him. But after this year, I realized a lot of the things that people say negatively about him really start to make sense. Number 8, Brian Dumoulin. Brian Dumoulin in his prime was a perfect defensive defenseman. He is what Pittsburgh needed to win cups, and it was proven because we won back-to-back cups. But at the beginning of the season, I read a quote from an interview that Dumoulin was giving through a radio station that essentially what he said is that he's not necessarily driven to win more cups. He's happy with what he's done in his career. He's complacent. He's comfortable. These are words for a team that made it very clear they wanted to run for another cup that you just do not say or believe, because that's a guy we don't need. If we really are serious about wanting to win another cup, we don't need comfortable. We don't need complacent. We need guys that are going to go for it, that are going to do everything it takes to get there. Dumoulin, unfortunately, is no longer that guy. He's been Chris Letang's defensive partner for the better part of a decade. Honestly, probably the best piece that we got out of the Jordan Staal trade all the way back then, right? That Jordan Staal trade that we gave up him for we got Dumo and we got Brandon Sutter, who's still in the league, but arguably Dumoulin's the best piece of that trade that we got, right? Um, so when the talks come down and it's like, well, you think they're going to re-sign Dumoulin? No, I don't think they're going to re-sign Dumoulin. I don't think they should, regardless of what avenue they're trying to take. If they're trying to be a rebuild or not, or trying to be a Stanley Cup team, Dumoulin should be done in Pittsburgh. He should be. He should be done. He should be gone. Thank you. Goodbye. It's like it's like it. My dad always jokes about Rob Scuderi. It's like Rob Scuderi all over again, right? But except we have him after his prime. The upsetting part is that we probably could have gotten something for him in trade value if we would have taken the time to actually consider trading him. We might have been able to get something because his contract wasn't that big. You know, I don't think he gets re-signed. If I'm the general manager of Pittsburgh, he's not getting re-signed. He's done. See ya, bye. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done for this team. Thank you for 2 Stanley Cups. Goodbye. You're out. A few other people that I think are done in Pittsburgh, by the very least, are Jason Zucker. I think Jason Zucker has played his last game of hockey for Pittsburgh. And it's one of those situations where you kind of like you think maybe we resign. I don't like a player who doesn't really amount to anything. Injuries are one thing, and he was injured for a considerable amount of the time that he was here in Pittsburgh. But not performing when you're not injured and waiting until your last season that you're on contract with a team to have the best season possible with a team. Some people will call that fate, some people will call that luck. To me, I feel like some players do that on purpose to entice getting a bigger deal for your next contract. And while Zucker had an amazing season, at least for the average he was putting up for Pittsburgh, um, A, I don't think we're going to spend the money to keep him here, and B, I don't think where he's going to take a deal that's going to be friendly for us and not so friendly for his bank account. There will be teams out there that will probably throw $5-6 million at him for a couple of years, and I wouldn't blame him if he left. That's money. That's big money. Take it. Because as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to re-sign Zucker, I wouldn't spend more than 2.5, maybe 3 mil at the most, right? One guy that I was very happy that got re-signed for another year is Alex Nylander. I've been saying all year. Now Alex Nylander's just been playing in the minors. He was just this man is the brother of William Nylander, and William Nylander's in the second round of the playoffs right now. He's arguably one of the better players that Toronto has had, just because all of their other guys are being constantly defended against. He's one of the guys that has to step up, and he's done it somewhat. Not as much as I'm sure Toronto would wish, but and I feel like that's the kind of stuff runs in the blood. You know what I mean? And with Alex Nylander, he had a few really good opportunities at the end of the season, and every time that he was on the ice, offense happened. It did. So they gave him a chance. They gave him a shot. Here's a year. Hopefully he plays the majority, if not the entire season in the NHL, and gets a chance to prove he deserves to be here. And then we give him a big deal, right? So it's one of those opportunities, because I hate to say it, if the Penguins, whatever they go for next year, if it flops miserably, I think Sullivan's next on the chopping block. So it's not necessarily trying to prove to Sullivan you deserve to be here anymore. Because I feel like Sullivan's he's on the hot seat now. He's on the hot seat. You can only get rid of a general manager so many times before you start to think maybe it's the coach. Maybe we'd be better off with somebody that, plays players that deserve to play instead of benching certain people. Ryan Reeves. But yeah, Benino, don't resign. Kulikov, don't resign. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I'll talk about Tristan Jarry after I talk about the defense for a hot minute. That's okay, because I want to give Jarry a shot here. I want to because I think there's something there, but I want to talk about the defense before I get into Jarry. Let's start with the offense, because that's the fastest thing that I could probably get through here. A few things that need to change offensively. Personal opinion. Personal opinion. Jeff Carter needs to go. I would rather have Michael Granlund than Jeff Carter, because Michael Granlund has the intangibles. He did more on the ice in the short time he was with Pittsburgh than Carter did in the last 2 years in the regular season. He can play defense. He can do offense. He can do all of it. And he's a definite perfect third line guy, third line center for Pittsburgh. Carter is not a third line center for Pittsburgh that Pittsburgh needs. I honestly do think we need to move him, cut him if we can't move him. So he has a decent sized contract, so moving him is not going to be easy. But if you can do it, do it. If you can't, cut him. I said Benino's gone, in my opinion. I don't think that worked out at all. That was a waste of money, honestly. Money, time, and inevitably draft picks. Dayton Heinen. I think Heinen's going to get re-signed, because I like Heinen's play. I think Heinen did good for the team for what his role was, and even above and beyond what his role was. He stepped up to the plate this year. I do think that there's a chance. I think there's a high chance he gets re-signed. I don't think that there is really any doubt in my mind that he doesn't. Pulang, I see Pulang getting re-signed because he's still young. He's only 23. Like, there's a lot of gas left in that tank, and he's a fast dude. And when he's on, he's on, and when he's off, he's off. But when he's on, he's on. And he's 23. He's just got to learn a little bit, and then you're good, and you got a solid guy, right? Defensively, I made it clear I want Dumoulin out of here. See you, bye. Thank you, bye. Kulikov, I don't think Kulikov's going to get re-signed. And then there's two players that I think should get moved. I think that Ruda was definitely a. I think Ruda should end up becoming our seventh defenseman. No offense, Chad. I think Chad should be an eighth defenseman personally. And Pedersen. I think Pedersen needs to go. When they traded Matheson for Petrie, it was going to either be Matheson or Pedersen, and it was Matheson because he's just slightly younger and very slightly cheaper. But Pedersen, I think, needs to go too. I mean, give credit where credit is due. When the team needed somebody to step up and fight, Pedersen was out there with his super lanky arms, super long arms, looking like a hockey player, slender man out there. Super long arms. Um, Literally no power behind his punch, but that's beside the point. He's the guy who would step up. Uh, I call him No Chin Pete. So he has no chin. Uh, and but I do think it's time that we another guy that if we can move, we can move. If we can, I don't know. He's not working. Guys that we should keep. Letang, obviously. I wouldn't be surprised if Letang retired either this year or next. To be fair, Pio for sure. We got guys in the minors like Ty Smith, who was awarded Man of the Year for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Pens this year. Ty Smith, he's down there. Why not bring him up? I mean, he had a couple shots up here, but give him some long term, give him a dedicated defensive partner in the top team and an opportunity to get that chemistry. And you might see him and Pickering and Wilkes-Barre were pretty good together. Granted, they're both left-handed, and it doesn't really necessarily work out a lot, at least in the pros. Why not? And he's still young. There's still. He was one of the guys that we got when we traded Marino. I was happy with bringing him in. I was really hoping Pittsburgh would have went and gotten Kevin Ball from New Jersey. Ball is life. Dude's 6'8", like 240 something, big young dude. Like that. That's who I wish we would have traded for. But we're not a size team, unfortunately. All right, so let's get into the actual free agents. So we're gonna just go ahead and hit up forwards first here. I have the NHL 2023 free agents tracker. Shout out to Spot Track for this awesome little quick thingy here that allows me to get the information as fast as feasibly possible. Now let's see. We look at Pittsburgh. Okay, so we get rid of Zucker. Zucker's gone. That's a lot of money off the top. Say that we can maybe move Carter. If not, we cut him. That's more money off the top. And then I mean, if you throw Dumoulin in there and all the other guys that are either not getting re-signed or get traded, like Pedersen, I think Carter's like 4 something. Uh, Zucker was a high number that's going to be gone. Dumoulin was 4.5, and then anyway, now Pedersen's like 4.2, I think. I mean, that's a decent amount of money, right? We got options now. We got options. And a couple players that I was looking at, just for the sake of thinking. This is the mindset when I'm talking about free agents. The mindset I have here is how can I make the Pittsburgh Penguins a Stanley Cup playoff team? because the draft is more for the future. This is in my mind, how do we turn this around right now? All right. So you got your top lines, right? I think the top lines should be as follows, and there's spots that I will slot people from free agency into. This just let me break that down. All right. So for centers, first line Sidney Crosby, second line Evgeny Malkin, third line Michael Granlund asterisk, fourth line Ryan Pulang asterisks. These asterisks are here because there are free agents that I think we could acquire that could also play these roles and then subsequently move people up or down or to different positions. With all that being said, let's begin. So, as far as the center's position is concerned, the first thing that I'm going to look at here, and the first player that, honest to God, does come to mind instantaneously, funny enough, Jordan Staal. Jordan Staal has been the assistant captain of Carolina since we traded him to Carolina all the way back in the trade that we got Dumoulin and Sutter. He's an unrestricted free agent this year. Obviously, he can still go as these playoffs have been showing. Jordan Staal still has the size, the body, and the leadership. That's another thing. He's been a leader for Carolina for the better part of a decade, right? Like that, you don't just give a guy a leadership role and expect him to work. You put the guys that you expect to work in the leadership roles. Jordan Stahl's a guy that I think if we brought him in, put him back on the third line, there you go. And then if you have, say, for example, next year, the year after, if Letang retires, you got a guy you can put the A on. You know what I mean? Like Jordan Stahl, a couple years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe. Decent deal. Come back to Pittsburgh, play with Sid and Malkin. Now, that's, of course, taking into account if Carolina does re-sign him, which they do have a lot of people they have to re-sign this year that are a lot younger. Jordan Stahl can be that stopgap on the third line center role with leadership quality, size, and grit, and a desire to win, right? Give or take. If Carolina goes all the way and wins the cup, you never know. Maybe he'll just be, all right, that's it. But say, for example, Carolina doesn't. You know what I mean? Now you get a guy who's like, I was this close. Gonna do it. And Jordan Stahl becomes a Penguin, win a cup. Boom. Um Scrolling down this line here. Now, I did read an article out of Vegas that they're very interested in bringing back Teddy Bluger. However, I will throw Teddy Bluger in as a mental note and as a note here for the channel and for this video. I would like Pittsburgh to bring Teddy Bluger back. I was upset when we got rid of him. I understand why we did, but I would like it to be one of those, all right, he left, he went to another team, and then he came back. I want it to be one of those. I don't know. But I would like it to be one of those scenarios. Now, the reason that I think that's possible is because either one of two people in Vegas in the center depth position is going to go because you either can sign one or the other. And I do in fact believe that Vegas will probably re-sign Teddy Bluger, which means this guy, who I'm looking at for Pittsburgh, as far as the center's position is concerned, Nolan Patrick, second overall draft pick by the Philadelphia Flyers some years ago. It's a second overall guy. Really hasn't lived up to his potential, but you put him on a team with guys like Crosby and Malkin, superstar talent. Superstar talent yields results, right? bigger body guy, plays more of a gritty defensive style, but he's got the offensive touch, and he's proven that he's got the offensive touch. Is it consistent? No, but it could be. And for a team that if they're trying to make it to the playoffs, they're trying to make it to another cup, they need a little bit of unpredictability. That little bit of imagine if this dude blew up and owned this part of the season. Or imagine if that kind of stuff, right? Those guys that are just going to blow up mid-season. Guys that can also fill the first and second. Like bringing Jordan Staal in, yeah. Could he potentially fill in for Gino on the second line? Probably. Could he do it long term? No. I don't think he could. Could Nolan Patrick? He's young enough. He's got the size, and he's got the IQ, the hockey IQ, to be a second line center, even a first line center in some bad teams. So, bring him in, put him on the wing. And if you need one of those top 3 center positions to fill, you've got a guy that can do it. There's potential there, right? But those are the centers that I'm looking at. Jordan Staal, Nolan Patrick, or Teddy Bluger. If Teddy Bluger comes back, fourth line, perfect fourth line center. All day, every day, Teddy Bluger. Now let's go to the wing. The wingers. Few things. Very, very few things. I have Zucker off the list. I think Zucker's not going to get re-signed. Moving Carter, all those players that I said that were going to move, there's potential here, right? So here's how I look at my top 6 for Pittsburgh next year, personally. Nylander, Crosby, Gensel, Raquel, Malkin, blank. And then subsequently, third line, I'd have Rust, say, for example, Staal, Heinen. The bottom 6 you can move around a lot. You can mix and match. Now, here's something that I find to be pretty ideal for Pittsburgh. There's 2 players that I think would fit our team and give us that grit, and why I think we could get at least one of them. The first one is Michael Bunting of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is a unrestricted free agent this season, or well, after this season. He is a grit player, as shown in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's already been suspended. He's one of those guys that I think Toronto looks for a lot more than what he's actually going to produce for them, because they're always looking for a fall guy, and Bunting seems to be the fall guy now for Toronto. So, I don't see why he would stay, because I wouldn't want to have to put up with that, you know. And he's got the grit. He's got the things the Penguins don't have: grittiness, drive. Right? He's got the forechecking. Rust has good forechecking, but imagine Rust and Bunting forechecking, and then you put anybody in the middle who can score. Boom, boom. Right? Got to keep in mind it does take a lot of stupid, unnecessary penalties, stuff like that. But that's all that can all be taught to someone, right? You can teach somebody not to be insane, I guess, maybe. if that makes sense. You know what I mean? You teach somebody to not make unnecessary penalties. That's why I said bring Jordan Staal in, because Jordan Staal could be the kind of guy to teach Bunting. You can be gritty, but you can also be clean, because that's how Jordan Staal plays. Gritty, but clean. Now, of course, if Toronto or Bunting is crazy enough to stay in Toronto, then there's another guy out there that I think a little bit more talented as far as the offensive side of the puck is concerned, who can do the exact same thing, if not better, is Tyler Bertuzzi. Here's the reason why I think Tyler Bertuzzi has a hot chance of becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin by the beginning of next season. Unrestricted free agent. Boston has a lot of contracts that they have to sign with a lot of backlogged money that they haven't paid, that they have to pay still. I don't think they'll have the money to re-sign him, because they'll prioritize other people first, leaving him open. And Pittsburgh will have the money for a guy like Bertuzzi. Imagine that top six, right? You could do Rakell, Crosby, or Nylander, Crosby, Gensel. Same difference in the second, with Malkin, Bertuzzi, Rust, Staal, blah, 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 all the way down, right? And then just to shore up the third line left wing spot, Max Domi. Max Domi. He's in Dallas now, but another unrestricted free agent heading into this year's, well, into the offseason, inevitably. Everybody gets to the offseason eventually. Max Domi. So those are the forwards, I think, right? Staal, either Patrick or Bluger, Bertuzzi or Bunting, and Max Domi. Those are the forwards, I think, that if the Penguins could sign them, or at least a combination of them, we would be more in line for a cup run, as far as forwards are concerned. Now let's get to defense. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm not sponsored by them. Defensively, first things first, when I originally shot this video a while ago, I did put Dmitry Orlov in my list of people that I think, again, because Boston has a lot of money that they have to spend before they can even consider re-signing people, as one of those people that I thought we could bring. But Orlov has made it essentially clear he's going back to Washington at the end of his contract. So that's off the table. A couple players that I think would fit perfectly for the team. Here's the defense as far as I see it. You have Letang, blank. Petrie, Piojo. I honestly think Letang and Smith, Petrie, Piojo, and then the bottom six, or the bottom two, and then seventh, eighth, etc., etc. A couple people that I think could fill these spots. For that, but that the third right-handed defenseman role, I think that Matt Dumba from the Minnesota Wild, after Minnesota being outed in the first round, which I was hindering on whether or not their success was good or bad, and whether or not Dumba had a part of that success, as to why I think Dumba could become a Penguin next year, or why I think he should. I think he can, and I think he should be a Penguin next year. He would be perfect for that right-handed defenseman spot on our decor. Again, grit, defensive prowess, and drive, determination. And he's going to be playing with a team that has superstar level talent, so that he doesn't have to be the game changer. He just can play his role and do his job, right? Shane Gostisbehere for the left-hand side is another guy that I was looking at to replace Dumoulin with Letang. Letang is at the point now where offensively his wheels are not as fast as they once were. Shane Gostisbehere can fill in a lot of that subtlety offensively that we need. And he's also a bigger body guy. He's been pretty good for a team like Arizona, which has been just garbage. Um, and he's been pretty decent for Carolina in the playoffs as well, right? Like, and again, this is a team with superstar talent already. He doesn't have to be the be all end all. He can just play his role and vibe with Chris Letang on that first pairing. And then as far as any other considerations are concerned, I'd only ever really bring in another a veteran presence defensively. Because as far as my list of defensemen are concerned, right, we'll have Letang, we'll have Petrie, Pio there's Smith, Rudeville, Ruda, um, possibly Pickering. I feel like he should spend another year in the minors personally, but possibly him. Um, and then say for example they get Dumba. Say for example they get Gostisbehere, right? One more veteran defenseman that can move up and down between the minors and the majors, but also have experience, presence in the locker room, is a guy like Antoine Strollman. If the Penguins can turn their defensive core into a defensive core that's Letang, Gostisbehere, Petrie, Pio, and then, or even Dumba and Pio, Petrie and Smith, Petrie and literally anybody at that point, right? And then you put Strawman in there as a guy that just fill in when people are hurt, when they need a break, right? Just as that seventh, that eighth guy. You move Chad down to eighth or ninth. Ruda can be the dedicated seventh, But then you have options. And you have competition for people to want to be in these positions. No more complacency. If you're not going to play, we'll just put somebody else in that can and will fill that role. That's what I'm thinking. So, wrapping all of that up into a nice, cute little bow, here's why I think Tristan Jarry should be re-signed by the Pittsburgh Penguins. If we are taking the avenue of going for another cup, and we do the things that I think, in my mind at least, fit that role, fit those positions, and get the players that I think would help the team, Tristan Jarry should be re-signed because, folks, I know everybody craps all over this guy. He's a two-time All-Star. A two-time All-Star. On a team who is having a dwindling decor into a non-existent decor, two-time All-Star, Tristan Jarry. You put a decor in front of him that's even half decent, you take and eliminate a lot of the rebound opportunities that are thrown his way by getting guys that actually do their job. Tristan Jarry could win a Vezina. Think about it, though, in Penguins history, right? Marc-Andre Fleury, Vezina winner for a different team. Not for Pittsburgh, for a different team. You know why? Because he finally got defensemen in front of him that did their job. And he became what he should have been in Pittsburgh. But he spent all those years with a crappy defense in front of him. Put a half-decent defense in front of Jarry. Watch. Watch magic. Watch all the Pens fans that are watching this right now angrily typing in the comment section, "You don't know what you're talking about. Tristan Jarry sucks." Watch every single one of their opinions change. Like instantly. Magically. Poof. Tristan Jarry is the greatest goalie we've ever seen. Put a half decent defense in front of the man and watch him cook. Watch him cook. Now, is there a probability that everything I just said could go up into smoke and he could just fold entirely? Yes, of course. Of course that can happen. But I am willing to wager it doesn't. You put a decent defense, people that are going to protect the front of the net, helping Jory and not hindering him, this man will win games for us. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Waugh. I'm not saying he's going to be Carey Price in his prime. I'm not saying he's going to be Sergei Bobrovsky in his prime. But he will win games. He might even get another All-Star nod. Think about that. You make these changes that I have presented, and there's a chance. I'm not a genius, folks. If Penguins management's watching this and all of these things happen off of my video and we fail miserably, understand I am not a professional. I only know so much, and a lot of this is opinion based. But no, if these subtle things happen and the team turns the ship around and we win another cup, I will be the first person to tell you, I told you so. But hey, that's it. This has been That Pens Fan 412. And I want to thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you didn't like the video, drop a dislike. I expect honesty around here. Folks, if you've got opinions or anything you want to talk about, anything that you want to break down, if you want to disagree with me, agree with me, talk about other players, other ideas, options, that's what the comment section's for, right down there. And don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already. Join the growing army. The season starts in some months from now. The playoffs are ramping up, and I will be back to talk about those when they are all said and done. Thank you again all for watching. I will see you in the future. Peace out.